Hello, my name is Azure Robinson, one of the team members at WikiTree. Today, on our 30-day countdown to the WikiTree Symposium, we're chatting with symposium speaker Sandy Patak. The WikiTree Symposium is a free 3-day genealogy conference running from November 1st through the 3rd. Registration is now open. It isn't required to attend, but it does enter you for a chance to win door prizes. Welcome, Sandy. I'm so excited you'll be presenting again this year at the symposium. Can you share a little bit about where you're from, where you work, and what your current focus is?
Thanks, I sure can. I focus on Appalachia pretty much solid all the way through. I started my genealogy induction with one of my uncles, my Uncle Drex. He would actually, way back in the day, would go door to door and would talk to his aunts, his uncles, his cousins, his third cousins, his eighth cousins. It didn't matter. Everybody was there in this one little town, and he would take a piece of pad of paper and a pencil, because he always had to erase something. He'd ask for names and dates. Fascinating enough, my relatives and ancestors in Appalachia knew them right off the top of their head. They could tell you everything. They could tell you where they were born, when they were born, how they were born, were they born in the hospital, were they born on the farm, anything like that. Well, he wrote this all down, so I'm not really sure why I was the sidekick. I probably volunteered because I knew at every house there was going to be cake or pie. So there was always definitely going to be that. And stories. I was always into the library, so stories were always interesting to me. And as we went from home to home, he would collect these documents. And I had binders and binders full of these documents. When he passed away, he gave them to me. So by that time, though, the computer was around. And he didn't want to get the information that he'd already collected into the computer. That was just too much work. And this was before a lot of the genealogy programs came about. And at the time, I was working with a global company, and I was their lead in software training development. They were proprietary software, and I would travel the globe. Somewhere along the way, my uncle gave me a little bit of information and said, if you're going to be headed over to this part of England, could you stop by this church and get a record and maybe a picture of a tombstone or something like that? And again, this was before digital cameras and everything. So I started doing that. And then he started showing people back home in Appalachia, and they started asking and they got bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's when I said, I need to do something with this. So that's when I decided, I'm going to become a pro genealogist. I love the research, and I love the travel, and I love to be able to help. So I had a pretty successful business of my own. And when COVID hit, that's when a lot of more people came onto the internet and said, hey, I can do this for myself, or I can meet somebody that's maybe over in Italy who can do this for me and give me a picture. So as a pro gen, I saw what was coming, and I realized I needed to change my focus as well. I was probably at the end of my professional genealogy career where I wanted to focus more on my own people with stories. Mm-hmm. I had the stories. Let's go ahead and share those stories. So that's when I closed down the professional genealogy part of my business and brought up a webcast and podcast part of my business called Ancestry Roads. And that's kind of where that came together. It's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of people that we've talked to on webcasts. We've talked to people that have told us about our coal miners, what they've gone through, how the struggle for Black lung is still a struggle. We've gone through people who've written books on food, people who've written books on culture, but it's all Appalachia. That's where I am, and that's my passion. And you got to go with your passion. You are the expert in that area, and I've been around Appalachia since the day I was born. My family is Appalachia. I am the only one that was kind of born 1 foot out of Appalachia, 1 foot in Appalachia. As soon as I was born, we went back home to Appalachia. So it's there. It's my culture. I love my ancestors. I have one particular line, as I'm sure that everybody does, one particular family line that they love, and mine is my beloved Bonners, who I'm still trying to break down brick walls. That is the beauty and the power of WikiTree, because I've been able to break down brick walls in other countries based on the friendships I've made here in WikiTree. And one of my presentations this year is talking exactly about having genealogy buddies.
How did you originally hear about WikiTree?
I've had a lot of clients that were on Ancestry. They did the Ancestry DNA test. That was the requirement for me to work with their lines. A lot of people had the brick walls, and you had to do a DNA test.
Mm-hmm.
That was the brick wall slammer for me that I could bring out my hammer with. But the problem is that I would build their tree there, and a lot of people could not afford the monthly fees. They couldn't afford looking at it. And I started looking elsewhere, and literally within 2 days, I found WikiTree, and I started my tree because I said, if I'm going to use this for clients, I need to make sure that I know what I'm doing, and that it's something that makes sense. When I started my clients, I literally had to add myself, my mother, and my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and boom, I was connected because somebody else had already built out my tree in WikiTree. And I was totally shocked. And since then, I've become friends with him. So that's how we kind of found WikiTree. We needed a place to park family trees for free. Yeah. We also needed to have a place where those interesting finds, those stories, and a lot of them were military finds and stories, they needed to be focused somewhere as well. And on the other websites, you can't really focus that. You mostly get the dates. Yeah. And WikiTree allows you to kind of connect in and do that full biography and get those stories. It also allowed me to do photos. So every time for a client, I would, dig around and ask people that were connected to them, do you have any photos? It could be a photo of a person. It could be a photo of a pocket watch. A great-grandfather used to always have a photo of the store they used to go to or own, something, any photos. And that was getting more and more difficult at other sites. Yeah. Along with explaining what this is and why it's important to that person's life. So WikiTree was the answer. It was simple.
So you mentioned a little bit, but what are you going to be presenting this year? You have 2 presentations.
So the 2 presentations, and it's very interesting. I have been asked 4 years on WikiTree to do something with food. And I have declined it many, many times because in my mind, I really need my grandmother sitting next to me to do something with food. And she has passed on. That's where I learned everything I know about food. But for those of you that are in any WikiTree LiveCasts, and if you see somebody say or type the word biscuits, you can thank me for that. Because that's when we started the Appalachia Project. We were very tiny. We were very, very, very small. We had 10 people, and then some more people would kind of find us. But the way that we would introduce ourselves and let ourselves know that we were another Appalachian, we would say biscuits. And that was how that came about. It's not meant disrespectful to any other culture. It's just recognizing our own culture, and it's a way of saying hello. That's really it. And I love it that other projects and other people that are not from Appalachia will come in and say biscuits as well. So it was time. It was time to really talk about the food and the culture. And if anybody does not know Appalachia, I will tell you that we are not a singular group. We are what WikiTree's t-shirts say, an Appalachian mutt, because we really are that. We bring so many cultures in, mostly because of the coal mining. The coal mining brought in global community to Appalachia. When you talk about Appalachia, the first thing people think of is not biscuits, it's moonshine. So the title is We Are More Than Moonshine. And what I'm going to do is share with you some chef interpretations, some author interpretations, also as well as the culture interpretations. We're going to have things like a vinegar pie. And why was a vinegar pie so important to Appalachia? And it was because it was during the Depression. We're going to share something called goulash. And why was that so important to Appalachia? Because the Hungarians came to the coal mines. And then something called pepperoni rolls that were built, made in West Virginia. The coal miners needed a lunch. Somehow, some way, you come through Appalachia. Your culture does come through us. It maybe, drove by or maybe sat there for a while and stayed. But we're going to look at the food and who came in on a global basis. And it will probably be mostly based off coal mining. I won't lie about that. It probably will. And then the second presentation came about because I am constantly bugging other people and projects and the country projects for help, for brick walls or research. And two of the ones that I seem to contact the most are Italy and Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking, you know what? I've really become friends with the people in these two projects. I would have never met them without WikiTree.
Yeah.
Never, ever. I just would have never known them. They're on social media, so you would think that maybe I would have. Not to the point where I can just easily reach out to them and say, can I ask a favor? Can you look this up or help me find this? And they do the same to me. So it's back and forth. So it's more about your genealogy buddies, how you can use your resources for them to help you finish a project or a goal. And what we're going to do is we're going to join together a lot of my buddies on WikiTree from different areas in the United States and different areas of the world to help me finish working on a coal mine disaster project where we have multinational coal miners that are not being recognized. Mm-hmm. They're not being known right now. And some of them died in their early 20s. And we're going to do that. We're going to change that. And we're going to give them a history and a story.
That's wonderful. I'm so excited to hear your presentation. So just to recap, the first one that you'll be giving is going to be kicking off Saturday presentation schedule. So that's Saturday, November 2nd, and that's at 9 a.m. Eastern. And your second talk will be at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for chatting with me, Sandy. To learn more about this year's symposium, follow the link to the symposium help page in the description of this video. Bye.
Bye.